Clinton Loft House here with my first layers walkthrough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a series of these videos and put them on the blog. Basically I'm just going to go back into some of my old images and walk through the various layers and things I did in those images with you, and just maybe describe the layers a little bit, and then you can see what went into the creation of these images. So if we go into Photoshop, so this is how the S.W.A.T image started. I shot myself with a free light setup in my home studio, and once that was done I tried finding a stock image in my own library, which I took. This one was taken in Halifax in an abandoned car park. So once I'd shot myself, I got the background template into Photoshop and then started from there. So as we can see, I zoomed in a bit. Obviously the background like that wouldn't be too good for the composite, so what I did was zoom in, and I knew this was going to be kind of a dramatic image, so when I do a dramatic image I like to put a bit of tilt on the image. So the next layer is background cleanup, and as you can see there's a few distracting elements here. You always want to try and get rid of the distracting elements from your image and just try and tidy it up a little bit. So that's them gone. And then obviously in my sketch I knew there was going to be an explosion here, so I added some glowing which were going to be coming from the explosion. I did that with curves, just playing with the channels in the curves. Again, just playing with the tone of the image, again with curves. Still playing with the tone, bringing down this area here. And then cleaning the bottom up. This dark patch, I think it might have been oil. Just again with curves going in, just making that less drastic. And then darkening the area here to focus your eye more into the centre as the people coming in later. And then this is just some of the embers from the explosion, just here a little bit later on when the guys were added in. So next I took all my images of myself just as a swap and used the pen tool to cut them all out. Let's just go in and open this a bit further. As you can see, just turn all these off. Just the Photoshop work on the guys itself was a mission. So we go. So this is the first guy on the left. So again, I shot myself with a preset light up on all of these images, so we could get a little bit of rim on the backs and some rim in the front, and then some fill here. So then there's just adjustments to the body, just to get to match some rim light coming around here, and then on the front again just to enhance that. And then adding in some orangey yellowy colour, using hue saturation there again just to make it a little more orange. Then next guy on the side, as you can see I didn't really bother too much about the feet because I knew they wouldn't be seen, as the main guy would be covering most of that. Yeah, just playing again, just matching tones with curves and levels. Whereas where there is some highlights, it might not make sense for him to be there, so you can always tone them down a little bit. But you still want a bit of depth, a bit of rim light just to add shape to your character. For all these adjustments with curves, you can pretty much do anything with curves, and I use it a lot. I recommend you start, if you don't use it, to start learning it. And then here's the main guy, handsome chap. Just toning down some of the highlights, again with curves, just some adjustments in the knee pads at the bottom, just toning them down, toning these highlights down here, then adding some rim light back in, just adding more contrast to the face there. This is quite an old image, so my workflow was a little messy back then, but it don't, as long as you get the final image. It doesn't matter how you got there. So I know some people have a real strict workflow, which don't worry about that. That'll probably come with time, as mine. Everyone's workflow gradually changes to how they work. So if yours is messy like this, do not worry. Just adding in some highlights on overlay, and then obviously use the blend if to kind of get the shadows and lights, and then with a hue saturation adjustment layer, clip to that, and then turned it to the hue that I wanted. So that's the S.W.A.T, guys. And then next we've got a global tone, which, to be honest, I can't see much from here. It must have been, oh, just on the S.W.A.T, guys, just a tiny little bit at the bottom there. And then to match the colour match the guys to the background. I haven't done this in a long time because I do it different now, but the way I've done it here, I think what I did was take the background image and average blur it, and it gives you a colour, and that colour is this here, and then you with a clipping mask add that to your characters, and it kind of, as you can see, just kind of blends them in subtly with the same colour. I think that was a trick that I learnt from Glindu a while back. I don't use that way now, but it's still quite a good little trick to use. And then curves again, just on the colour to make it a little bit deeper. So then on a blank layer we've got the light flare at the back, which was on just with a brush sampling the colour here, and on a linear dodge mode just painting it around the light. Then we've got the embers, which were just on used with a stock ember image, just put them on there. Played about with hue saturation. The embers were used on a screen blend mode, so it got rid of the black and just left the lights. If I would have done that nowadays, I would probably added a bit more glow to these, but I've left it as it is. An explosion glow, just a little bit of glow around here. And again, because it was an old workflow, I've gone in and I've done sharpening and details in the middle, which I don't know why I did that. I usually do everything like that at the end now, but so we've got some sharpening used with topaz detail, and then to use topaz you have to use stamp visible layers then to add the effects on both, so that's a stamp visible layer, and then I've added detail extractor on top of that just to bring out some more detail. The next is the blue tone of the image. So for me this is too warm, it doesn't look very cinematic. So using colour balance to show you what I've done. On the mid-tones I've pulled in some cyans, and then I've pulled some blues. I think I've probably done it in the pulled in some blues in the shadows and highlights. Yep, I've pulled in some yellows and reds because obviously that's the highlights is affecting this area. So my thinking was in cinema they use a kind of bluey teal colour for the midtones and shadows, and then the highlights where I was kind of an orangey colour, so I went for that kind of feel here. So you've got that colour there, and then you've got the blue midtones and shadows here. Gives it a very cinematic look feel. Next, again, I love a good flare and lens flare, etc., coming from lights from behind characters, and I always keep enhancing little by little the effect. So again here, what I've done is I've used a render filter, lens flare, and just put it onto a black fill layer, put it over the image, and then just put that in screen blend mode, and then just put that over the light again to enhance that. Another stamp visible layer. Selective colour, so I've just added some more blues into the shadows. So what you do is I've gone into blacks and then just pulled in the blues a little bit. Again, one of my favourite parts of editing images is dodge and burn, and I do a lot of this. So here I've just been shaping the face and the guy's arm at the front, and as you can see just clicking it off and on a little bit more. Nothing too drastic on this, as there's a lot of detail on again, just around the faces. And a vignette just to take away some contrast from the edges, so your eye goes into the middle of the image with all the contrast in the centre. Again, another light flare, adding more and more. Just on this area here on the lights. We've got a high pass sharpen. And then we've just got some little fixes later on. What I must have noticed later on. So we've got this area here. Fixed up the tones of that. There and there. And we've got a gun cleanup, as you can see. Here's some plastic toy machine guns. Well, when you buy them from the shop, they're bright orange. So I got some matte black spray paint from the shop and just sprayed them. But you could see some of the orange coming through. So basically, I've just gone in and cleaned that up. Then another background fix again. This time around the fingers and hand in that centre there. Another stamp visible layer for some reason. I used to like stamp visible layers back in the day. I don't know why I created them, there must have been some reason, but I work a little differently now, as I said. Then we've got the roof fix, so as you can see here, there was a little issue with the roof. So I just went in there and then added a section in here just to clean that up a little bit, and that's the final image. So I hope this has been quite helpful just to see what goes into making an image like this, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, and if you've got any questions, feel free to shoot them over. Thanks guys.